Hey, what's going on, guys? It's another year and another disc golf tournament. Want to show you the layout. So hole one is a par 3, 172 feet. It is right down here, right by the creek. Hole two, you're throwing from the driveway. It's another par 3. The length is 155 feet, and you're throwing inside this fenced-in area. So the fenced-in area plays as a island, so you have to land inside the fenced-in area for your shot to be good. Hole 3, you're throwing from just beyond the fenced-in area. It's another par 3, and it's 164 feet. You're throwing from there right into this small gap here into the woods. You kind of see it kind of nestles and kind of goes and weaves around, and you're throwing just beyond this tree to the left. It's kind of up on top of a ledge right on top there. This is definitely a tricky one. Hole 4 is just under 200 feet, another par 3, throwing from over the driveway, and you want to go over the creek, landing on this secondary area here, and you'll find that the basket is in a grouping of trees right over here. So this is a fun one, probably one of my personal favorites. And then hole 5 for the next one, another par 3, throwing back over the creek. So you threw over, now you're throwing back over, and you're going to be throwing right in front of the driveway here to this basket. Driveway plays out of bounds at the entire round. You think this hole is a lot easier than it is, but for me, I always have trouble with it. Hole 6 is you're throwing over the road. Remember, the driveway's out of bounds with the entire round. This one's a par 3, 174, and you're throwing the same basket that you actually just threw on for hole 5. Now hole 7, which we're coming up to, is a tough one. Par 3, 188. You're throwing over the fence through this gap. You're throwing down to the same basket that you just threw to on hole 1. This is a fun one. You hit the line perfectly. So you'll see the basket right there, and then there's a creek right there that you see on hole 8 as well. So hole 8, throwing with the creek line across the road. Road's out of bounds. Throwing with the creek line, you'll see just kind of follow as it weaves along, and you'll see the basket there, right up there, just beyond the creek. Par 3, 164. This is definitely a fun one, very scenic from what we heard from people who played before. Hole 9, to finish out the front 9, is par 3, 202 feet. It's a tricky little hole here on the back of the property, so you're throwing through this tight line, and you'll see that the basket ends up being at the top of the property. You're over a wood pile that you want to get over, and it's kind of right there in a fun little area. Going beyond that is OB. So now to the back 9. So the back 9 is essentially longer versions of the front 9, or kind of like a small alternate version. So you'll see hole 10, par 3, 190, throwing from just a little bit further away, similar to hole 1, but a little bit different. Hole 11 has a fun little twist. So hole 2 was an island hole. Hole 11 is essentially you're throwing over the fence, so you don't want to land it. If you land inside the fence, it plays as a hazard, so you're going to take a stroke. So instead of throwing in the fence, you're throwing over the fence for hole 11. Hole 12, you are throwing over these weeds, over all this brush, and you're going to be going again to that basket that was in that tight gap that you saw in hole 3. So par 4, 269. This is also 3 and 12 have traditionally been some of our tougher ones. We've seen some birdies, but they're pretty slim and few and far between. But you'll see it once again. The basket is to the left here, up on this top ledge. Hole 13, I think, is a fun one. It is a tight hyzer line if you're a right-hand, back-handed player. So you're playing a really tight hyzer land that you just want to have it bending to the left and bending to the left. So it's kind of a really tricky spot, but then you can see the baskets right there. It's the same basket that you threw to on hole 11. Hole 14, longer version of hole 5, throwing across the creek. Before there was a basket in that grouping of trees, but now you're going to find the basket is beyond the driveway. So the driveway plays out of bounds. You got to, kind of make your decision. Do you want to lay up or go for it? See if you can get an eagle. We're excited to see what you guys go for. Hole 15, throwing essentially from the driveway all the way up to the very top basket that you saw in hole 9. There's definitely a couple of routes. You can go the drone route. You can definitely take a route on the left, but this one kind of pushes you as well. Hole 16, this is the long one, so you're throwing from that same spot that you threw at on hole 13, and you're just kind of following the path. So essentially you're throwing down to where hole 7 starts, throwing over the fence, and you just keep winding down. This is the one that kind of showcases throwing across the whole property, and it takes you down to the basket that's right down there by the creek. Hole 17, these are some new drone flowers at the while the foliage isn't, completely in full bloom. So it's a longer version of hole 8, and it kind of goes up to this top landing area. This landing area is new. and this is the spot that we'll be throwing to. Hole 18, rounding it all out, par 4, 304. You essentially want to land your drive probably right about here, and then you have a big spike hyzer or a big shot over top of all this wood pile, all of the stuff that's here, and the basket's at a new spot all the way there on the left to round it your round. And we hope you guys play and enjoy.